This is part 2 of a series I'm doing on planning out and setting up your smart home. The first video went over the pros and cons of the available smart home platforms to help you decide which one was the best fit for your needs based on the ease of setup and what sort of ecosystem you already had in your home. After you picked out a platform you think fits your needs best, it's time to start looking for smart devices to actually put into your home. But if you do a quick search for smart anything, you'll see there's a lot of different options. Things like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, Zigbee, and Z-Wave. And if you ask online for help, you'll get people with these weird stick figure profile pictures who swear they know more than you ever could hope to know that you need to invest in this thing called Matter because it's the upcoming best thing that will replace Thread, and how are you even supposed to pronounce XKCD? Well, in this video, we're going to break it down and make it simple. First off, what even is Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, Zigbee, Z-Wave, and Matter for that matter? These are all just different wireless technologies. Just like you can't use an FM radio to watch YouTube, you can't connect your Zigbee devices to a Wi-Fi router. Each wireless technology requires its own matching hub to connect to. That means if you want to use Wi-Fi, you need a Wi-Fi router, and if you want to use Zigbee, you need a Zigbee hub. It doesn't mean you have to get a unique hub for each brand you get though. You don't need a singlet Zigbee hub and a Sonoff Zigbee hub. A single Zigbee hub will work for each brand out there. This also means that just like you can use Bluetooth and Wi-Fi at the same time, you can use each of these wireless standards together. In fact, I use all of these wireless standards in my smart home, and I'm very satisfied with the performance of each one. And this is one of the most important things I can say in this video. You don't need to bind yourself to a single wireless technology. While it makes sense to start off with one wireless option, be open to adding in a second wireless option down the road if the smart device you really want uses something other than what you already have. Instead, I recommend you decide what guidelines all of your smart devices need to follow and pick the device that best matches those guidelines. For me, I have 3 requirements for any smart device I bring into my home. First of all, it cannot interfere with the normal operation of the device. That means any smart device needs to be enhancing what I already have without taking away any functionality that already exists. I mean, it's great if I can turn off the lights in my kid's room when they forget to, but no one's going to be happy if you need Home Assistant running to turn them back on again. Second, it has to be controlled locally. Even if I lived in a perfect world where mega corporations didn't lock you out of your home because someone accidentally thought you said something they disagree with, I still wouldn't want any smart device in my home to require an internet connection just to work. And finally, it can't be too expensive. Now, that's kind of a sliding scale. I have no issue with spending a lot of money on a smart device once a year, provided that's just what this sort of device costs. I do have an issue with spending $80 on a light switch when I could get something just as good or better for under $20. But those are just my requirements. Your guidelines may emphasize ease of installation and no configuration, making you prioritize the $80 switch over the $20 switch. The important thing is that at the end of the day, your smart home works for you. Regardless of your criteria, it helps to start small. So let's say you've identified your guidelines, and you know what is the most important smart device you'd like to add to your home up front. You look up some options online and find that there are 4 main options. One that uses Wi-Fi, one that uses Bluetooth, one that uses Zigbee, and one that uses Z-Wave. They all have high reviews and do exactly what you want, so how do you know which one to choose? Well, I think it's time we dig down into these options. First up, let's talk about Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is arguably the most recognized and well-known wireless standard out of all of these options. For a home network, a Wi-Fi network is usually made up of a single access point that is often built into the router that your internet provider gave you, and a number of clients that connect to that access point, such as cell phones, tablets, or a laptop. Often this router will also handle the security for the network and control who's allowed to join through some pre-shared key, though there are lots and lots of variations to a Wi-Fi network that we are definitely not getting into right now. Just like a radio station transmits at a certain frequency, and you can only hear it by tuning into the right frequency, the different wireless technologies we're talking about can transmit at certain frequencies. Wi-Fi, for instance, operates at the 2.4 and 5 GHz frequency range, and can communicate with devices even decently far away. A single 2.4 GHz access point will probably cover around a 2,500 to 3,000 square foot home if it's placed in the right spot. Though 5 GHz devices will probably need a repeater or a second access point. As far as pros for using Wi-Fi devices go, one of the biggest pros is the fact that you probably already have an existing Wi-Fi network that covers your whole house and will require no additional hardware to get things up and running. Plus, setup of Wi-Fi devices also tend to be slightly easier than Zigbee or Z-Wave devices, especially if your tech skills are on the lower end of things. Many of them will have you download an app that will auto-discover your smart device and walk you through the process of connecting it to your home Wi-Fi network. And the ones that don't have this feature usually just need to be pointed at your MQTT or smart home platform server. In terms of cost, you're going to find that Wi-Fi smart devices tend to be on the lower side of things when compared to the equivalent Zigbee or Z-Wave smart device. And one last pro is that Wi-Fi smart devices tend to be readily available. From switches to sensors to power meters and light bulbs, it's very easy to find a smart device that connects to your existing Wi-Fi network. There are, however, some significant downsides to Wi-Fi smart devices. If you have an older or cheaper wireless router, you might find it gets overwhelmed by too many wireless devices, though honestly, this tends to be less of an issue with any access point or router made recently. This is fine if you only use a handful of smart devices, but as the number grows, your router might start to struggle. Of course, the fix for this is easy, just buy a better wireless router or access point. Another con with using Wi-Fi is you have to make sure you have enough available IP addresses in your DHCP server pool for all the devices you're adding. Though again, this is an easy fix. If your DHCP address pool is too small, just make it bigger. A basic network will be able to provide addresses for up to 253 devices. Now, I have a lot of network devices in my home, but even I haven't hit 253 yet. Of course, that assumes that you can use dynamically assigned IP addresses for your smart devices. You might have to set up a static IP or reserve IP addresses for your smart devices, which can require you to go into your router to configure things or keep a giant spreadsheet with what addresses are in use. All of which is entirely manageable, but the point is, a major downside to using Wi-Fi devices is it creates this overhead of network management that you don't necessarily have to worry about with any of these other wireless standards. A third con for Wi-Fi is that if a device is not going to support local control, odds are it's going to be a Wi-Fi device. Zigbee and Z-Wave devices tend to support local control by their very nature, but many Wi-Fi devices are controlled by an integration that sends commands to an API call on a web server that in turn sends command back to your home. Even when using Home Assistant, often I'll see an integration for a Wi-Fi device that comes with a warning that this relies on a web service, and that's a tricky place to be in, as one bad update could break it, or the company could go up, rendering your smart home non-functional. This isn't true for every Wi-Fi device, mind you, just make sure you read up about the device you're going to be buying before you buy it. One final con for Wi-Fi devices is they can present a security concern. Some Wi-Fi devices phone home periodically. This can be as innocuous as checking for firmware updates or as sinister as creating a backdoor into your network. Sadly, it can be hard to tell. But this too can be easily fixed through proper firewall management in your router or creating a VLAN just for smart devices. Or by flashing open source third-party firmware onto the Wi-Fi device to turn it into a locally controlled device free of any questionable firmware from the manufacturer. But enough about Wi-Fi. Let's talk about Bluetooth. Bluetooth is the second most well-known wireless technology we're going to be going over. If you bought a phone in the past several years and you've been met with the reality that you're going to have to buy overpriced earbuds that you will absolutely quickly misplace if you want to listen to music on your phone without being a complete jerk to the people around you, then I'm sure you're familiar with Bluetooth. Bluetooth also operates in the same 2.4 GHz frequency range as Wi-Fi and Zigbee, but it's designed to be short range and is low powered, so it's less likely to cause interference with Wi-Fi than, say, Zigbee is. Although, unlike Zigbee, you cannot select a channel outside the range of your Wi-Fi network when using Bluetooth. It's just going to do whatever it wants. Now, not that long ago, I would have said the biggest limiting factor of Bluetooth was its inability to be repeated. Meaning, if you weren't already using a smart home platform that made use of Bluetooth on its device, like say HomeKit or Google, then you would be out of luck on trying to use any Bluetooth device. Even when using a long-range Bluetooth USB stick, I still couldn't get a reliable connection even halfway across my house. Thankfully, with Home Assistant, all that has changed with the ESP32 Bluetooth proxy. Uploading simple code onto an ESP32 device and placing that device near your Bluetooth gives you a rock-steady connection with virtually no lag. So while on the plus side, Bluetooth is built into most computers these days, Bluetooth does come with a fair share of cons. The device that uses it tend to have less battery life than other smart devices. They have a shorter range than other smart devices, and getting it connected can take just a little bit of extra effort. Plus, many of the Bluetooth devices I've seen are specifically designed for Apple HomeKit environments, so they come with that Apple tax. Still, if you're already planning on using Apple HomeKit and want things to just work, Bluetooth is going to be your go-to standard. And you probably already have plenty of Apple devices, so you won't even need the ESP32. Zigbee devices also use the 2.4 GHz band like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth to communicate and get acceptable range. A Zigbee network is made up of 3 different device types: a coordinator, routers, and end devices. When it comes to the coordinator, like the Highlanders,
there can be only one.
The job of the coordinator is to act as a central hub for your Zigbee network. The coordinator maintains the Zigbee network and allows routers and endpoint devices to join and leave the network. As a result, this means you can't just swap out one USB coordinator for another. Anytime you need to swap coordinators, you're going to need to make a backup of your Zigbee network and restore it once your new coordinator is in place, and this can be a tricky process. Since Zigbee devices don't have as far as a communication range as Wi-Fi devices, you will need a Zigbee router device to create a mesh network and extend the range of the coordinator. Now, since a Zigbee router will need to repeat any incoming signal, it cannot enter a deep sleep state and will need to be powered into main voltages. For my setup, I installed these behind my light switches all over my house. Not only are they Zigbee routers letting me extend the range of my Zigbee network, but they also let me control my light switch itself. Now, if you're not comfortable messing with your home's wiring, and you probably shouldn't be, you can also get a Zigbee router that just plugs into an existing outlet. Zigbee end devices tend to be battery-powered sensors that wake up periodically to send its sensor data to the Zigbee coordinator. And it's exactly this process of going to sleep and waking up that allows Zigbee devices to have such fantastic battery life, usually speaking. In terms of pro for Zigbee devices, one of the biggest pros is that there's a huge variety of devices supported, and unlike other standards, there's no licensing fee for using Zigbee standards, so they are usually close in price or even sometimes cheaper than their Wi-Fi counterparts. Zigbee devices also tend to be very low powered, as already mentioned. This means if you have an equivalent battery-powered sensors like a Z-Wave one, let's say, the Zigbee one's probably going to last a little bit longer. And while it will take some additional effort to set up a Zigbee network, unlike your existing Wi-Fi network, once it's set up, all the routers just work together to create a mesh that automatically repairs itself anytime one router goes offline. This means that as long as your coordinator doesn't go offline, your Zigbee network will continue to work even if you lose 1 or 2 routers, depending on how robust your Zigbee network is. On the con side of things, however, is that since Zigbee uses the 2.4 GHz band, it can overlap with your existing Wi-Fi network, causing both your Wi-Fi network and your Zigbee network to have communication problems. Though this issue is easily solved by assigning your Zigbee channel to something outside the range of your Wi-Fi network. And since Zigbee is not the same thing as your Wi-Fi network, you will need to purchase at minimum a coordinator to bridge the Zigbee network into your main network. Additionally, Zigbee devices tend to have a shorter range than a typical Wi-Fi device in the 2.4 GHz band. Your average end device will only go 30 to 100 feet or 10 to 30 meters, provided there isn't anything at all between the end device and the router, and let's face it, that's not reality. So unless you're in a small house or an apartment, it's not just the coordinator you're going to need to buy. You're also going to need to purchase several Zigbee routers and place them in key locations to build up a strong Zigbee network. This can represent a pricey upfront cost of building up your network and a serious time commitment if you're planning to use switches that install behind your existing light switches. Which is what I personally did for my Zigbee network, and I haven't had any issues with it. Or at least I've had almost no issues with it. I was having an issue where every once in a while a Zigbee router would decide it wants the day off, but I was able to track that down to a child who was playing with the light switch, causing the Zigbee router to go back into pairing mode and leave my network. Now, in terms of security on Zigbee networks, it tends to be less robust when compared to Wi-Fi and Z-Wave. In fact, by default, all data is transmitted with no security at all, and all devices are allowed to join in. The fix is just to make sure you set up a security key when you set up your Zigbee network, and only allow new devices to join when you manually tell it to, like when you're adding a new Zigbee device. But I've seen several guides that have you permanently leave the coordinator in this permit join state, which is just begging for a bad actor to jump onto your Zigbee network and start messing with your smart home. One final con for Zigbee is it can have some compatibility issues with other Zigbee devices. I mentioned previously that Zigbee doesn't require any licensing fees, and that's great because it keeps costs down. Well, unfortunately that also keeps strict standards down as well. I have some car temperature and humidity sensors that ended up being completely incompatible with my soft switches. They initially joined my Zigbee network, but within a couple days, they just stopped responding. Turns out, the car temperature sensors uses a chipset that isn't fully compliant with Zigbee standards, and eventually it disconnects themselves from my Zigbee network. I've heard that a more recent version of the car temperature and humidity sensors fixes this issue, but I'm not in any rush to try out something that I've already been burned by. And just like how end devices can have compatibility issues with routers and with the coordinator, it can even have issues with the software that acts as a bridge between the coordinator and Home Assistant, and you'll need to keep that software up to date if you want to add the newest device that was just released. This is just minor maintenance stuff, but it is something extra that you're going to have to deal with that you wouldn't have to worry about when using Wi-Fi. Last up in the big four is Z-Wave. Z-Wave devices operate in either the 800 MHz or 900 MHz frequency range, depending on what country you live in, and it gets very good range. Without anything between your slave device and the coordinator, you should be able to reach a range of approximately 550 feet or 167 meters. I mean, that's the length of 1.5 football fields, including the end zones. A Z-Wave network, like a Zigbee network, is made up of one and only one coordinator, or hub. And it can have up to 232 slave devices that send sensor information to the coordinator. Like Zigbee, the coordinator hosts all the information for the Z-Wave network, including the routing tables and security keys. In terms of pros for Z-Wave, my personal biggest pro is the fact that it has true device compatibility with any other Z-Wave device in the same frequency range. That means if you're purchasing something from AliExpress, you need to make sure that the Z-Wave device is designed to work in your country. Otherwise, it could be on a completely different frequency and won't be able to connect to your coordinator. Plus, Z-Wave, in my opinion, is a more secure standard than Zigbee. While I don't lose any sleep worrying that my Zigbee network will be broken into, since both Zigbee and Z-Wave use 128-bit AES encryption, I personally consider the means that Z-Wave establishes the end-to-end security and then escalates security level after that initial pairing to be a slightly more secure method. And while Z-Wave is not as power friendly as Zigbee, it is still very power friendly. So obviously power life will ultimately be a factor of the specific device, how frequently it activates to send its sensor data to the Z-Wave coordinator, and how big of a battery it comes with. You'll also find that Z-Wave devices have less interference issues than, say, Zigbee, since Z-Wave operates in the 800 or 900 MHz range. Though, if you still use a cordless phone or an RF baby monitor, then I don't know, maybe you might see some interference? And since Z-Wave uses that lower frequency band and has better range than Zigbee devices, a well-placed Z-Wave coordinator may very well be able to cover your average-sized home in America without any additional repeaters. Though, if you do need a repeater, a pro for Z-Wave is that the more repeaters you have, the stronger your network is going to be, as it creates a true self-healing mesh network that automatically and quickly reroutes traffic through a working repeater. Now, on the con side of things, the biggest downside to Z-Wave is that it is more expensive than an equivalent Zigbee or Wi-Fi device. The reason for this is that every Z-Wave device must pay a licensing fee to use the Z-Wave protocol. Of course, it's this very licensing arrangement that ensures that the Z-Wave protocol is strictly followed and the Z-Wave devices actually have full compatibility, provided, obviously, they share the same frequency. Also, compared to Zigbee and Wi-Fi, the maximum number of devices you can have in your network is a lot smaller. A Z-Wave network can have, at maximum, 232 slaves, while Zigbee devices can have, theoretically, 15 million end devices. Though, look guys, in practice, once you start to hit the thousands, you're going to see some technical limitations of devices due to their placements relative to one another. And for one final con of Z-Wave devices, it's only half the speed of a Zigbee network, operating in about 400 to 100 kilobits per second. Though, I really need to emphasize that low speed doesn't mean high latency. Z-Wave and Zigbee devices aren't designed to use a lot of bandwidth, and instead focus on sending small packets periodically. Both Zigbee and Z-Wave do this very quickly, so they don't need a lot of bandwidth. Your Z-Wave network will feel just as responsive as your Zigbee network or your Wi-Fi network. It's just that your security cameras or smart doorbells, they're not going to be sending any video feeds over Zigbee or Z-Wave. And as a bonus con for both Zigbee and Z-Wave, they both only have one coordinator that holds all the information for your network. With Wi-Fi, I can easily add a second router or access point and migrate devices to the new one, or replace a dead router and be back up and running fairly quickly. With Zigbee and Z-Wave, if your hub dies, you have to reconnect each individual device and rebuild your Zigbee or Z-Wave network all over again from scratch. Now, there are some ways to mitigate this by creating backups to your coordinator, but as of right now, that can be a delicate and tricky business, so your mileage may vary when using it. There is one final wireless technology to throw in as a bonus thing to talk about, and that's Matter. I personally don't have a lot of opinions about Matter one way or the other right now. It's a relatively newcomer to the automation scene that is designed to work with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and supports Zigbee and Z-Wave through yet another wireless standard called Thread. In practice, however, it's just not there yet. Look, it's still very much in beta, so for the person just getting started in home automation, my recommendation is to look into one of the more robust wireless standards. If you're a super techie person and you love the idea of working with emerging technology and working out why it's broken and how to fix it, then who am I to stop you? Go have your fun! Just be aware that if you're expecting Matter to right now support the majority of Zigbee and Z-Wave devices, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. So that's the pros and cons of the different wireless options. Which one do I personally recommend between Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, Zigbee, and Z-Wave? The answer is all of them. I know, not a super satisfying answer, but it's the truth. For most of them, any con that exists is easily fixed by improving your setup. I use Wi-Fi switches flashed with Tasmodo for 100% local control of any light I want to dim or a fan I want to control. I also use Wi-Fi and Tasmodo on a Shelly switch to control my garage door opener. I use Bluetooth as a presence detector and for a door lock and to control my blinds. I use Zigbee for security sensors and switches all over the house. And I use Z-Wave for my thermostat and leak detectors and so much other stuff, guys. Rather than being locked into a single wireless option, find the device that works best for you. And if it's a new wireless technology, add it into Home Assistant. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know down in the comments below what your favorite smart home wireless option is, or if there's any standard you refuse to ever touch. I hope this video has helped you understand the pros and cons of each of these standards so you can make the best choice for your home. Because every home should be a smart home, and together I can help make yours just a little bit smarter. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to hit that like button and share it with your friends. If you haven't subscribed yet, I hope you will, and be sure to hit that bell icon to be notified of all the updates I do on this channel. If you want to support the work I'm doing here, then I hope you'll consider becoming one of my Patreons, where you'll get early access to all kinds of videos. And until the next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May he cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.